G'day, my name's Kyle Grace and I'm seeking balance, truth, connection and soul. And I'm working on single purpose, single organisation, single spirit. Uplifting life through the human experience for one and all, across time. Space is an important part of our life. More than space, I'm talking about the land, the water, and the air of Earth, our spaces. And more than just spaces, I'm also talking about the assets of those spaces, the things that have come from the Earth or come from us, which are, I guess we're also from the Earth in many ways. So this pack is just kind of a brief, I guess, consideration of some of the components of space. And the first thing to acknowledge about space is how important space is in this time, space, identity, and people kind of interaction. It's linked to all of those things. People are in spaces, always. Physically, we're always physically in a space as long as we're alive, and assets are always in space as well. People and assets are in space at a moment in time for a period of time. Very, very few people would stay in the same space for their entire life. We're moving around. And assets are usually moving around as well. We're changing spaces as time changes. Another important feature of space is access control. And actually, when we talk about access control, we might think of a space as not just physical, not just land, water, and air. We might consider digital spaces. For example, I'm in a physical space while I'm recording this, but you're watching this in a digital space, or a virtual space. This is a space as well. And we're accessing those spaces with our bodies. We're going, physically accessing a space. And some of those spaces are controlled by access controls. We're using your identity to authenticate that you are who you say you are, and to authorize you. Who are you and what is your authority? So people are attending space and using assets when they're in those spaces. And we are controlling access to many spaces and many assets. So you have to have a certain level of authority to get access to those spaces. And as an extension of this, when I wonder about gaining access to physical spaces, and I wonder about gaining access to digital spaces, I also wonder about gaining access to imagined spaces, spaces of idea, perhaps spaces of spirit. When it comes to physical space management, there's a number of space systems that we might consider. It's the drafting tools are actually drawing the space up and designing the dimensions. We might have a library which includes all different types of documents on the space, so contracts, leases, different floor plans, and with those floor plans we might have space visualization tools where we start to map those spaces in, potentially even provide waypoints to get from one space to another space. And then separate from this, we've got core space data, the actual data about a space, which is generally stored in different systems, and based on that data we might be able to visually display that space, or we might be able to conduct analysis to draw insights off that space. So I guess as part of this, we're always going to have integrations, maybe connecting these systems together. Maybe that's done manually. Maybe we can automate it. And we might have service requests on spaces as well. For example, people who want a space cleaned, mail that needs to get delivered to a space, even booking a space, we're requesting a service from that space. We're requesting access to the space. We can consider spaces on many different levels. We can consider the space of a country. We can consider the space of a suburb. We can consider the space of a building, all the way down to a space of a room. And when we're talking about the space data associated with the room, we might be thinking about the type of space. We might be thinking about the condition of the space, the characteristics of the space. We might be wondering about what systems are integrated with that. Who needs to know about the space, and what do those different systems or different people need to know about the space? We might be linking assets to a space. We might be explaining what items exist in the space. And we might be granting access to the space, bookings, scheduling, renting, owning. And when it comes to ownership, we can start wondering about custodians of spaces, those that have responsibility over those spaces. Ultimately, there are very many things that I wonder about spaces. Where is the space? With what is the space? Who is with the space? But I guess most of all, I wonder about this concept of a custodian, of an owner, what their purpose is. And I wonder what their responsibilities are. Who are they custodying that space for? Is it for themselves? Is the space for somebody else? An individual? A certain demographic of people? Or are we using that space to uplift all of life? To enhance all of our human experiences? I guess we just want to utilize spaces as best we can. Ultimately, I think we want spaces to be protected and secured, at the same time as being open and free. I wonder a lot about standardized spaces and standardized asset management. One of the most frustrating things in my experience has been that we name things differently and we put all that definition in so many different systems. So we as one human race are doing the same thing over and over again. One space, we do it again, and then we do it again, and then we do it again. The space hasn't changed. We're just using different systems to do the same things. Or different people doing the exact same things. And I also wonder about the way that assets are attached into spaces. There are a lot of assets that I own. But there are a lot of things that I'm like, I don't actually need this myself. I want that to be part of the space that I'm in. Maybe we can consider the space an identity itself, a part of Earth, a part of life. And we don't exist without space, do we? And therefore, if our space is a part of life, then we can attach assets to spaces. And if we're trying to uplift life, we might be trying to uplift a space. And if we're trying to uplift a space, then we've got standard tracking on our assets. We can see very clearly which assets are the lowest quality and which assets might be replaced to uplift life the most. Some food for thought. I wonder a lot about space. And as I'm wondering about space, I'm wondering that with space, with assets, what do we most want with life together?